let's go. Call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call at this time. Mayor Pro Tem is not here right today. Mr. Reitenbach, you here? Mr. Anderson, you here? Mr. Barnett, you here? Ms. Spears, are you here?
As far as I know.
Mr. Waddell, you here? And the chair is here. So we have a consent agenda C1. C2 is a resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract in the amount of $582,413.50 to Evans and Sons Contracting Incorporated for the Pine Grove Bridge Repair Project. 01 is an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Section 2 of the city's fee schedule to increase allowable contracted police services fees. 02 is an ordinance establishing a speed limit of 25 miles per hour along the city-maintained portion of Telephone Road. Yes, sir, Mr. Reitenbach.
What is the speed limit along the non-maintained city public roads out there? Does anybody know that? I mean, I can't imagine them being 35 or 40 because they're all kind of like country lanes.
Do we have anybody from traffic? No, we don't have anybody.
You can just mention it tomorrow night.
We'll figure that out.
Thank you.
03 is an ordinance appropriating fund balance from the general fund totaling $2,100,000 for the settlement of the matter of Funkyard LLC versus the city of Wilmington. Okay, R1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute Amendment 4 to a contract with Monteith Construction Corporation in the amount of $1,340,946.14 for the Convention Center repairs project. I guess this is coming from the Convention Center funds. Okay. And then R2 is a resolution declaring multiple city-owned properties as surplus. Okay. And then R3 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Wilmington, North Carolina, authorizing the negotiation of an amendment to an installment financing contract in the amount not to exceed $30 million to finance streets and sidewalk projects, parks and recreation projects, the construction of a new fire station, and the construction of a sports complex, and providing for certain other related matters thereto. Yes, sir, Mr. Waddell.
Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Manager, the initial installment financing contract that was referenced from like 2012 for Wilmington Future Inc. I'm not familiar with that. I'm just wondering what the status of that is that we're amending the original contract.
Yes, with our limited obligation bonds, we secure that with collateral, which is held in an indenture, a deed of trust, and we have a 2005 indenture and a 2012. As we continue with additional financing through limited obligation bonds, we amend that indenture, so we're using the 2012 for this issuance. Amending it means we're adding up to $30 million to that indenture. We are also, with this financing, adding the River Lights Fire Station as collateral.
Gotcha. So we're just adding additional security to
Yeah, every time we use that indenture for financing, it's an amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. All right, and then reports RP1, Council Appointments Committees for Boards and Commissions, and Councilman Reitenbach will be giving us a report from that Appointments Committee. At this time, this concludes our agenda. Mr. Manager, are there any other items to be brought forward?
Mr. Mayor, we have two items for presentation this morning. The first is the presentation, excuse me, on the downtown Greenway, and Abby Lorenzo will do that for us.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This morning, as Mr. Cottle has indicated, I'm going to be presenting an update on the Downtown Trail Phase 1 design project. The identified goal for the design of this future downtown trail, Phase 1, is to reactivate currently unused space in the North Side community, providing a safe walking and biking connection to the downtown that celebrates both local art and the unique history of this area. The future facility will provide not just a continuous connection to the downtown, but also to existing and planned future bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and serve as a safe transportation facility to those without access to a personal vehicle. So the purpose of my presentation today is to provide a brief background on really the origins of this project and how we got to today and its current status, as well as to present the proposed alignment and allow for any questions or feedback from council on its current proposed placement, as well as to provide an update on our ongoing coordination with NCDOT Rail Division regarding the alignment within their owned right-of-way, as well as to give a summary of the next steps in the design project and where we go from here. So the downtown trail as a whole was identified in the 2013 New Hanover County City of Wilmington Greenway Plan. It was the #1 priority project in that plan. It's intended to connect the downtown with the North Side, Lovegrove, to Forest Hills communities with a safe off-street connection and multi-use path facility. In total, it's a 5.9-mile approximate trail, and on your screen, under the 2013 Wilmington Comprehensive Greenway Plan, is an image from that plan that really shows the entirety of this proposed trail facility. Phase 1 has been identified as the section from 3rd Street, traversing through the NCDOT rail corridor. It's known to some as the Gulch, but it's a geographically depressed area that runs through the North Side community. Out past Dorothea Johnson Pre-K Center to Archie Blue Park and a terminus of the Lovegrove Bridge. In 2015, the city, along with the WMPO, worked with its local delegation to secure legislation that allows for the city to lease the NCDOT rail-owned corridor for this purpose. And in 2017, staff continued work on a Gulch Greenway proposal for within that corridor. Then you will also recall that in 2020, the Rail Trail Master Plan was developed with the Friends of the Rail Trail. I would point out that the rail trail is just one section of the overall downtown trail, but this master plan helped to begin that vision for what this corridor was to look like. And then in 2021, late 2021, the city received funding from the WMPO to complete the design of this first phase of the trail. That design began in 2022, or mid-2022, and brings us to today. So on your screen is the current proposed alignment for this trail. As you can see, it starts at or near Cape Fear Community College's multi-use path that terminates just before the 3rd Street Bridge, traversing through that NCDOT rail-owned corridor, out past the Pre-K Center to Lovegrove, Archie Blue Park, and the Lovegrove Bridge. You will notice that there is an orange line on your screen. This represents the alignment that was proposed in the 2013 Greenway Plan. After review and work with our multiple stakeholders, which I'll speak a little bit more to in a moment, it's been established that there's an opportunity to transition the alignment instead of taking a north turn and heading up McRae to parallel CSX tracks back to Lovegrove, to continue a straight alignment to the south of the school's site. This was identified as an opportunity to provide access to more residents, finding that there is a complete sidewalk connection along McRae, as well as through discussions with CSX that parallel alignment to their tracks in the northeast quadrant of your screen would not be something that they would be able to approve. Also, the new alignment will provide access to the future Northside grocery store location, which is called out here on the screen. So this is a more zoomed in version of the first half of this alignment. The yellow indicates the trail's alignment within NCDOT Rail Division's owned corridor. Coordination with the department is ongoing as to the exact location and how this trail design will complement their future plans for rail within this corridor. We have been having bi-monthly meetings with NCDOT Rail as we work through how to make sure that this corridor can essentially serve two uses moving forward, the trail, and then when NCDOT Rail, as they intend to bring passenger rail service back to Wilmington. Moving out, again, I mentioned, by continuing the alignment straight to the south side of the school's property, it will allow future access to the future Northside grocery store. Continuing north-northeast, the trail will cross CSX-owned tracks at King Street. Another stakeholder has been CSX, as well as working with NCDOT Rail. They currently have an ongoing project to upgrade rail crossings. This is one of those crossings that is currently in design for upgrades, and we are working to ensure that our needs for crossing at this location can be incorporated into their current design, which will be going to construction in about another year. And then heading down to Archie Blue Park, traversing through the park, and then eventually terminating at the Love Grove Memorial Bridge. So the next steps of this project, ongoing currently, we are meeting with stakeholders. We've had 11 meetings to date, continuing to make tweaks where necessary based on their feedback to this proposed alignment. We also are planning to go out to the public later this year to share this alignment and solicit feedback from the citizens as to their thoughts, as well as what they would like to see this project become. Then once we've gone out to the public and we've incorporated any of those comments, we'll continue working on the actual design of this trail. Proposed grading, drainage, necessary utility relocation, where property acquisition, right-of-way acquisition may be necessary. And then this project is just funded for design, so once a final design has been completed, the next steps will really be reviewing the potential opportunities for funding for property acquisition and construction. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Questions? Mr. Dunbar?
Good morning, Amy. When Phase 3, as pictured in our handout, comes along, obviously it's going to the rail will be sharing that space. The path or its present or its intended use, non-rail will still continue to flow along that same path?
Yes, so we're continuing to work with NCDOT Rail to make sure that when rail does come in, that a walking path, biking path, a multi-use path will also remain for use within this corridor. It's hard, during construction of the rail, temporary closures to that trail may need to occur, but the ultimate goal for both NCDOT Rail as well as the city is to ensure that there will be no major changes to that trail within that corridor.
Do you all have in somebody's office or conference room a big picture of this trail? I'd like to see it other than trying to peer into the smallness.
Sure.
I mean, it's kind of customary to do that, to have the whole thing mapped out so we can have a look at it and see individual places where it impacts and what have you. Yes,
we do actually. We have two printouts of this trail alignment. It's actually in two split, similar to these slides. And we do have those at our office, as well as we can send out PDFs to our...
Well, this looks like it's from like 5,000 feet. Do you have something that's more, you see what I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. Something that, okay, you have that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and where would that be?
We have large-scale printouts at our office in 305, as well as we can provide PDFs of these. zoomed-in images to council.
Thank you, Abby.
Good morning. You mentioned, how many public meetings have you had so far, did you say?
So for this phase of the trails design, we have not gone out and had a public meeting yet. We are planning to. We have been meeting with project stakeholders, DOT, DEQ. We've met with New Hanover County Schools, CSX, et cetera. Some of the business owners. We're planning to meet with WDI, but ultimately, we want to hear from the public, especially since we have made a few changes to the alignment that was proposed in the 2013 Greenway Plan. So that is forthcoming later this year once we finesse this alignment a little bit further with NCDOT Rail Division.
And you kept mentioning the grocery store on the north side. Is that still going to happen?
That is what our understanding is. We've spoken with New Hanover County twice now, and they are very excited about this future project, for the access it will provide to their future site. So that is what we know at this point, is that is moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, Mr. Waddell?
I mean, let's say best case scenario, green lights all the way through, everything is just clips right along. How long from today until some future time where we start moving dirt on this project?
So we will.
I realize that's how,
Yeah.
but just to give me an idea.
So our schedule for completing the design is intended to be completed in the next year. This, of course, is subject to continued coordination with the Rail Division. The next step will be finding the funding for actual construction. So as soon as that is identified and secured, really we'll have 100% design plans and we'll be able to press go.
Abby, in respect to Mr. Umbach's question to the trail, being that it's going to be shared with the rail, are there other examples around the state where there has been a trail system put in adjacent to a train? I guess, let me back up, and I'm going to tell you what my concern is. Sometimes DOT has a tendency, and I'm not picking on DOT, but to say, well, they got a trail there, so there's no reason to bring in the train back because the people are going to be upset about us tearing this trail up to bring in the rail. So do we have examples of that around the state where they have shared use of the right-of-way?
There are examples which I could provide.
I'd like to see
by
them.
email,
I
but
would just
also-
like to see them making certain that, to our good friends at DOT, if the trail comes in and rail does eventually come back to the city of Wilmington, as it should, I just want to make certain that we don't have any conflict with our partners at DOT, because we'll probably get a public outcry from the community that says, oh, no, we don't want a train here, when all along the train was supposed to come. And then all of a sudden, DOT says, well, we're not going to do anything with it because there's no consensus in respect to where the trail and the rail should end. Follow
Yeah,
me?
and I can say with certainty that DOT Rail is very motivated to make sure that our design complements their future rail design. Later this week, we are actually going up to Raleigh to meet with the Rail Division in person to discuss how we can make this happen. Wilmington is, as they say, very much on their radar for where they intend to have future passenger rail service. So we want to, as good partners, make sure that we're doing nothing to inhibit that and supporting their future efforts while they support this use of the corridor until they can bring rail back.
Okay. If you can give me some examples, I'd like to see them, please. I think the entire council should. And then the other question, two questions. When you come down, you've got the rail corridor, and it comes up to North 8th Street there where it makes the crossing into Love Grove. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then at Love Grove, it goes off trail. It goes off of the right-of-way. This is a right-of-way that we're creating from let's just say about King Street, coming down into Archie Blue Park, going around the back of the park, that's obviously not a rail corridor, correct?
So coming down, I believe that's Railroad Street.
Where it's crossing there at King, where it crosses the rail line, and they're making some improvements there, comes into King, the rail line continues straight down, and then where it goes off, where the black line is, kind of follows the creek there, Smith Creek. That's not a rail line, correct?
So it crosses the CSX rail tracks, and then when it comes into Love Grove, sorry.
I just want to make sure the people in Lovegrove don't think there's a train coming through there. Are you following me?
Well, yeah, so there is the
Because there's
existing.
rumors that always get out there. People say, oh my God, they're going to put a train back there, and social media will blow it up. But it seems to me that you go off-road here, and you come around the back end of Lovegrove, follows the creek. That's not part of a rail, that's not part of rail.
So this portion of our alignment, other than paralleling.
Does anybody have a cursor they can put on this thing?
Can we get a cursor on here? I just want to make sure that it's clear on this. I know how neighborhoods have a tendency to get on next door and talk.
So we're talking about the black line
Yeah, it's right there,
alignment.
right
That is shown as a proposed alignment for trail and trail only.
Okay, very good.
Wait, say it again. That is rail. Is that what you're saying?
Trail.
Trail. not
Multi-use
rail.
path facility.
Okay. And so
sure.
what the mayor was saying was then that the train will just continue on this line going south. Is that right?
So there is existing and active CSX tracks which are crossed at King Street.
Can you show where the line is, where the track is, Abby? Can you show it?
Yeah.
No, it's right there. That's the
So
active
that's
rail line.
existing CSX, it's an active rail. The intersection crossing at King Street is currently in design for improvements. But no, the black alignment is the proposed alignment of a multi-use path facility.
And the residents of Love Grove, have y'all had any kind of discussions with them in respect to this proposed trail?
So we have had a few conversations with a few of the property owners. We intend to continue having conversations. Also, they will be notified, specifically, they'll be receiving a postcard in the mail before our public hearing, our public meeting. So we will be making every effort to make sure that they are informed and stay informed and know who to come to with questions.
I know many people in that part of the community would love to see a trail. They've been talking about trails since the North Side Plan was unveiled many years ago. Then the other thing is, the last thing is, besides the funding for the trail and the design, the final design, what are the biggest impediments in respect to getting this thing done? Drainage, alignment, concern. What do you see, and maybe you and Mike see, as the biggest impediments to getting this thing done once it's approved, once it's funded?
So once we continue our coordination with DOT Rail and really figure out what our alignment is going to be within their corridor, the design itself should be pretty straightforward. In the Love Grove neighborhood, towards the Love Grove Bridge, there is a DEQ identified, I guess brownfield would be perhaps the word. There used to be a dump on this site, and the DEQ has identified the site as a priority for remediation, and we'll be working in the next 5 to 7 years to remediate that site.
Can you show me where on this map the site is that you're talking about, right there, where your cursor is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this site
Abby,
will,
that's what's your cursor, and that's owned by a private entity.
part of it is.
So I see City of Wilmington, but then I see looks like an LLC.
Yes, and we spoke with Mr. Maynard, who is the owner of that LLC. So we will, the city will need to coordinate with Mr. Maynard moving forward with DEQ to move that remediation project forward. Essentially, what DEQ has shared with us is proposed for that site is, because of the contaminants, because of what is buried out there. The site will need to be cleared, and then they will be bringing in fill and placed on top of a geosynthetic liner, essentially to keep the contaminants contained. So the timing of when that occurs could impact our schedule. Ideally, we would like to coordinate, so the remediation is done just before we build our trail.
Do you know how long the remediation process would take, number one, and then we would just wait until we get the final funding for this before you start the remediation process? Because remediation could take some time.
Yeah, so we've gotten a timeline between 3 and 7 years from DEQ on when they're going to move forward with this project. Ideally, we would not want to make the investment to build a trail through an area that is going to be remediated. So again, we intend to work to coordinate our schedules to make sure either they're going in just before or we're getting there at the same time.
So right now, the first phase of this project is from downtown to McCray Street. Is that correct?
No, it's actually all the way to the Love Grove Bridge.
All the way to the Love Grove Bridge?
Yep.
Okay. Well, good thing is we don't have to buy any right-of-way, right?
Well, that'll be part of this process, is identifying whether or not there are an easement or anything we need.
Yes, sir, Mr. Anderson.
Well, along the lines of the headline that comes out of this, that the term grocery store needs to be loosely used, because I don't know what the county's proposed is not a full-scale grocery store, as I understand it. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's not a Lowe's or a Harris Teeter or something. So just to clarify that. But so I guess I was under the impression that the Gulch portion was further along and we were going to start on that. But you're saying we're not going to start on that until the whole thing's ready to go.
So we're working on a design for this whole section, and part of that is within the Gulch. What's most critical within this Gulch section on the screen is that we coordinate with Rail Division to make sure that we are proposing a design that will not impede their future rail.
But some funding has been allotted to that
So
portion.
we have funding for design for this whole section. But beyond design, we do not have any funding for construction or any right-of-way we might
So
need.
the people that are all excited about the Gulch need to get real patient. We're talking about, you said 3 to 7 years before anything happens.
So DEQ has told us 3 to 7 years for the remediation in Love Grove. However, they've also indicated that that's not definite, and that should we coordinate with the other property owner on that site, that this may be something that we can push along sooner and line up and coordinate with our own trail schedule.
As you know, as you've seen with DOT, 3 to 7 means 7 to 12 lately. I think there's a lot of momentum in that Gulch section. People might have they may feel like that it's somewhere that it's not.
So one of the stakeholders we've been in constant contact with, and really they're a partner at this point, are the Friends of the Wilmington Rail Trail and the Arts Council. And they were, one group that we had a conversation with last week. In terms of the Love Grove remediation, there may be an opportunity to build the trail all the way to the park, and then press pause and build the remaining section once the remediation is complete with a future phase of the downtown trail. This is phase 1, but there are phases 2 and 3, which will connect south eventually to Forest Hills. So there may be an opportunity, to build to Archie Blue, and then press pause on that remaining quarter-mile section.
Can I interject?
That makes sense. Thank you.
For a second. When you say the Love Grove community, who are you talking about?
The Love Grove neighborhood.
Like, but who from the community have you spoken to? Because the Love Grove community is changing, so it's not what it used to be.
So to date, a member of our project team has had conversations with the two property owners. I'm sorry, I don't have a cursor, but the first property owner, when you come in, crossing the tracks on King Street on the right, yep.
Okay.
And the property owner, yep, right there. But as I mentioned, we're really at the start of coordination with property owners within this neighborhood. We have continued efforts planned, including, going out on site and having face-to-face discussions, as well as sending personal notifications to the property owners of public meetings and who to contact, to have further discussions and ask questions.
Okay, so let me just chime in a little bit, because you got some folks who've lived in Love Grove before Love Grove became popular, before Love Grove is experienced this new growth that it's experiencing, and some people north of Market who have asked for things for years. And if my gauge is working properly, they may not be as excited about new things to come along now because they have new neighbors. And they've been asking for resources from the city of Wilmington for years. Not, it's probably decades. They've yet to see those things. And to piggyback off of what Councilman Anderson said about the grocery store. They've been asking for a grocery store, and you're right. We're using the term grocery store, and they're probably not going to get a full-scale grocery store. They're going to get a market or maybe a market, really scaled down. But I believe it's kind of hard for people to see so many resources and so many possibilities come along now because of new development, when they've been asking for resources and changes for decades. And now we're coming along, trying to beautify and connect and spruce things up, when this is something we should have been doing the entire time. And I'm certain you'll hear these sentiments from those neighbors. And so that's why I asked. But I just wanted to chime in with that little bit of information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Abby.
Thank
Got a lot of
you.
work in. Good presentation. Mr. Caudle?
Mr. Mayor, at one of your previous budget workshops, we discussed with you necessary improvements to the Marina Riverwalk down by the bulkhead. And we wanted to bring that discussion back for your consideration this morning and give you an update on where we are with that. And Mike Naklicki, our project manager, will overview this item for us.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you again to provide an update on the Marina Riverwalk repair. You all at this point are probably pretty familiar with this project out there. As the city manager said, I was before you several months ago to share some of the options with you, and I heard some concerns about cost, about duration of the work, the impact to the residents in the marina. So we'll talk about some of that, and I know our Assistant Director of Engineering, Denise Freund, brought this before you last month from a higher level budget standpoint. So just as a refresher, I'll try to go through these first few slides quickly since you've seen a lot of this. This is the project area. The Marina Riverwalk in question is about 1,000 linear feet. That teal dashed line kind of sandwiched between the convention center and the new Kettler Metropolitan coming out of the ground and Riverfront Park there to the north. And immediately adjacent to it, obviously, is the marina and also the Pier 33 development. These are some of the photos when the work was completed back in 2014. Again, 1,000 linear feet of concrete walkway. Importance of this photo here, too, is to see that at the time that this was constructed, the only infrastructure really in place was the PPD building. We did not have the marina established yet, nor the Pier 33 development. These are some of the conditions you've seen over the last couple of years. The photo up on the left-hand side there showing some of the settlement of the concrete walkway, some areas upwards of 5 inches. Our operations staff has been out there to address any of the tripping hazards that may have occurred. Or the photo on the right there is really a worst-case scenario. It doesn't look like that regularly, but during heavy rainstorms, we do get flooding, which sometimes results in the need to reroute patrons until that flooding subsides. So what we did last year was an investigation. It included both geotechnical and structural engineers. The photo on the right there, you can see those are about 10 different borings that we drilled holes in the concrete and advanced to a depth of at least 50 feet. To better understand, further understand the soils down there, we did find some debris intermingled in some of those soils, but the biggest observation is some of the soft compressible soils that we found at depth, which is some of the reason for this settlement. We also ran ground penetrating radar, not only to locate the anchor rods that hold that bulkhead wall, so we didn't hit them with the borings, but to determine the level of voids potentially under that walkway. And we did find some water and air-filled voids just below the surface, but nothing significantly at depth. One of the observations is that in-place compaction of that soil, if we tried to peel up that river walk and recompact, is not possible. One, due to the compressible soils, but also the new infrastructure that's in place with the anchor wall, the tiebacks, the new development. We really can't come in there and just recompact soils. So the options that are on the table included advancing some piles to support a future river walk all the way down to some of the harder packed layers down at 50 feet, or stabilize those soils. The structural engineer did find that there's about a 2-inch front deflection on that front bulkhead wall at a couple locations. That was also the result of some of the soil consolidation and settlement. But the good news is, as I stated before, the structural engineer concluded that the stresses on that anchor wall are within tolerance, and the bulkhead system structural capacity is adequate, so there are no concerns currently with that bulkhead or in the future. This was the option that I brought before you, and we talked a little bit back in my presentation a few months ago, and was also funded with the FY23 budget. What it does is it includes a full demolition of all the concrete surface, removing the full 1,000 linear feet of concrete, advancing either helical pier or micropile piles down to a harder pan layer, and that would avoid any type of timber or H-pile pounding of piles, which would disturb the adjacent infrastructure. Some of the pros there, obviously it's a long-term solution. You're not worried about the soils underneath because you're tying in deep, better bearing capacity on the harder layers at depth. Again, supported by the dense sand rock layers at depth and less overall maintenance. Some of the cons, though, that we discussed last time was the higher cost, significantly higher cost for this. The full demolition of the existing walkway, obviously that would be extremely disruptive to both the marina users, some folks live out there, and also the new Pier 33. There is a longer project duration, and I'll get into some of these quantitative numbers on a couple slides, a much longer project duration to do that work, and generally access for the repairs. As I mentioned on the 2014 photo, there really wasn't any buildings, there wasn't a marina. It's much easier to get heavy equipment in that area at that time. That's no longer the case. So here is the conceptual design alternate. It is leaving the existing concrete surface in place and coming forward with a polyurethane grout injection, which would require drilling of some holes in the concrete surface, injecting the structural grout, which will, one, not only help stabilize the soils, but also fill any voids and help lift that surface back into place to address any of the tripping hazards and also promote positive drainage. Some of the, it will also allow us to keep existing infrastructure like the electrical and other items that have been installed in place. Pros, much lower cost. Again, we'll get into that in a second. Much less disruptive. Most of the work is down below the surface. We don't need to go peeling up the majority of the Riverwalk. It's much shorter project duration, and it is a long-term solution. We looked at this further, and this is a minimum of a 10-year solution, but we also have talked to the structural engineers and the contractors, and if there is any movement after 10 or 15 years, you could go back in here and inject a little more product. The cons, multi-year injection iterations. We expect the first year to be able to address this, but the contractors and the structural engineers have said we have to account for, we may have to come in after that first year just to tweak a little bit, bring it up to the proper elevations if there is any adjustments that are needed. That has been factored into the cost, any of those follow-up injections, and if we need to repair any of the concrete that may crack or move, well, we know will move, but be damaged during this work. The future maintenance injections, that's what I was referring to, if we have to come back 10 or 15 years later to ensure this is a long-term solution. And it also depends on the bulkhead stability, but as our investigation concluded, at this time we are not concerned about that bulkhead. So here is our recommendation we'd like to share with you. It is the existing concrete surface with the polyurethane grout injection. Benefit summary. Project duration, we're looking at once we can award and move forward with this design, a 10-month project duration versus 16 to 20 months. Detour impact, if we're doing the grout injection, we can do intermittent small closures, route people around here, primarily keep this Riverwalk open. If we're doing the full-scale demolition and rebuild, it's a continuous detour for the life of the project or the construction. Cost-effective, $3 million versus $7.6 million. And again, that $3 million is a very conservative number. It includes multiple injections if needed, and also the repair of any damaged concrete. We talked about the long-term solution, and we also talked about the disruption since most of this work is subsurface. What we're asking from you today is the next steps. We do have a proposal in hand from a consultant. We have the funding in place. We'd like to move forward with execution of that and begin design. I will open it up for any questions.
Mr. Waddell?
So the $3 million number is a very conservative number. Is the 7.6 also a pretty conservative number then for?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The 7.6, it's easier to estimate because it's really a direct scope where the injection, you know, there's some things that may need to be adjusted and tweaked, and that's why we're adding a little contingency to that. But
Is
the
there-
7 point,
Is there contingency in that 3 million
yes,
number?
absolutely.
Okay, okay. So
Yes.
it could be below that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, what is the, I guess the duration of the 7.6 million? I know that you go deeper in the ground.
Yeah.
Is it gonna, will it last, I said, the 3 million is a 10-year, would the 7 million be 20 years or?
The, you know, the 7 million is more like the applications we have around downtown with the pile-supported Riverwalk. Yes, we do expect 20-plus years on that, if not more. The 3 million option could easily last that long, but we did discuss it with our structural engineer to make sure if we're 10-plus years into the future and we do see some movement, if we can still go in and do some additional injection, and that is possible. So that's what makes it also a long-term solution.
So this polyurethane injection, is it like the stuff I see on the TV when they say we can fix your basement and they spray some stuff in it and it lifts it up?
It's very similar, and I don't remember which one of you asked during the budget work session, but you asked for some case studies. That will be included in your budget work session follow-up, but we do have some examples in there where, you know, one example in Chicago, Illinois, they had a very large apartment complex where they were able to inject this underneath the building slab and lift it into place without really disrupting the tenants that were there. There's also another case study up in New Bern at their convention center where the floor slab was moving. And it's a very similar situation where they built on kind of a riverbed there. Had some poor soils and were able to lift that in place. This is also done on highway and bridge slab applications as well. So, yeah, sorry, a little more detail there, but very similar.
All right, good. Thanks.
The problem is not the decking, it's the support of the decking,
That's right.
okay? Can you go back, there was one of your first pictures shows some of the problems. That one right there.
Yes,
Will either of the two alleviate that picture on the right?
both of them will.
So we're going to how far are we going to raise that deck?
At least 5 inches in the worst areas. We may raise it more on the back side to make sure, because the way this was designed originally is the water was supposed to flow towards the river over the bulkhead. So we will lift the back side a little bit more to make sure that we have that positive drainage.
And the reason for the concrete decking is more permanent, more stable, safer looking, safer? Are those the 4 reasons?
That's right. And, you know, concrete, the surface itself, the walking surface has a much greater lifespan than like a timber decking. As we've talked about before, we're going to have to go in after 20 years now and replace a lot of decking on the southern end of the Riverwalk. So this concrete surface does have a longer lifespan.
And the concrete decking is very heavy, and water weighs, I think, 7 pounds per a gallon. It's heavy.
Right.
Was there ever any thought, and I don't know if you were a part of it, Mike, or was there ever any thought for a floating dock?
Not at this location, because this was, I mean, obviously they have floating docks in the marina there, but this was where the area where they dredged the marina and backfilled this area and brought it up to grade. So, you know, that goes back to the Almont shipping days, this original design. I don't think they considered like a floating dock walkway, but I know that wouldn't be nearly as stable for some of the ADA reasons.
Are we having trouble with the finger docks that are floating?
As far as some of the what?
Are we having any trouble with the finger docks or whatever, I don't know what you call them, you just mentioned them, that go down into the marina. Are we having any trouble with them?
Those aren't ours, those are privately owned, so we really don't monitor them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, sir, Ms. Anderson?
Is there any thought what to doing this, or I know it would require some, probably some coordination with the marina owner, but to putting in a drain line to take some of that water, I don't know, I just think of like a little, almost like a a little gutter that goes into the wall of, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, we do have an outfall, a stormwater outfall that's down closer to the convention center. That does actually need a little bit of repair that we're doing right now with our annual needs contract. But a lot of this stormwater for the infrastructure behind the Riverwalk ties into that. But as part of the design here, if we need to install any type of, small drainage system to help promote the water away from here, that can definitely be considered.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
We have, I am continually amazed at the amount of work that has to be done on projects that we have put into place 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years after they're built. And not just a Band-Aid, I'm talking about major construction projects and repair. I don't want to spend $3 million or $7.6 million, and then the next council sitting here 3 or 4 years ago, or from now, comes back and they got to spend $3 or $4 or $5, $6 million because something wasn't done right, or it was poorly engineered. You don't see that in this. Of course, you wouldn't dare say you do, but I mean, it amazes me. I mean, we're getting ready to spend a bunch of money over the convention center fund, and that building, what was it, 2014? 2014 is 8 years. And we continually are spending money on some of these buildings and some of these projects that we do at great expense and turn right around. Now, I work on the private side, and I guess it happens there too, but I mean, this is a lot of money. Yeah. A lot of money for something that's not but this old. And nobody takes responsibility. There's no accountability. I mean, we shouldn't be having to do this right now. That's just a complaint, not aimed at you, Mike.
No, I completely understand. The river is a tough animal down there.
Mike,
It's damn right it is. And that's why some of the conversations we've had in the past amaze me. I mean, we're dealing with, have you ever been out in that river have you ever been on it when the tide's falling?
Yeah.
It's treacherous. We used to have a river raft race out there and people came very close to dying. Of course, they were half loaded, but still, I mean, it is treacherous. And I think what it's doing every 8 hours to the infrastructure there.
Mike, to Charlie's point, you know, I know we're talking about an extension of the Riverwalk going north under the Isabel Holmes Bridge to the Bennett Brothers Marina there. And I guess the areas that we've seen the most significant damage or repair work is the ones that are concrete-based, correct? Like behind the federal courthouse, the federal government has spent, what, almost $8 million on that section.
Yeah.
We're looking at 3 to 7 here. When it's pile-driven, you know, when we have the pier system, it seems to work much better, correct?
That's correct, and it's not necessarily the material, it just so happens to be the areas that aren't pile-supported are concrete, so.
So the section that I'm looking at here where the water is standing, going back toward the convention center, there's a piece of property there that's still vacant that I think that the Pier 33 group owns.
That's right.
There's anticipation that they're going to build about 100 units on that piece of property. That's going to run into the same thing in regards to load and weight going back into the Riverwalk, tying back into the Riverwalk. Are we making any, are we going to address that before that thing is built? Because you know it's going to put pressure on it and you know it's going to bow it out. We're running into the same thing now. Or is that, have we even had a discussion with them about that?
We are going to be having discussions with them. One, we have to talk to the existing Pier 33 development there because some of the elevations where they tie in, we're going to have to adjust some of them. But we're also going to talk to the other folks to get their schedule and their impacts. The actual installation of their buildings, if they do it the same way they did the northern building, it's on piles, it's on you know, slabs or spread footings. We really don't think that impacted much of this Riverwalk. Some of the issues were there was a couple large soil piles out there for the longest time. We do feel like that did put some pressure on that bulkhead and cause some of that deflection. Those soil piles have since been graded down, spread out, and are not causing that impact. But we will still have those conversations with them. We're going to engage our engineer with that developer to make sure we're accounting for any of the construction before we start this work.
Okay. And then on the water that we see here, in regards to it not being elevated enough to it does a sheet flow, they have to capture all that water before it's released into the river?
No, it doesn't.
So it could have been sheet flowed where we could have angled it about a degree or something, half a degree, to kind of get it into the river.
That's right, and that's the way it was built. Those pictures that you see back in 2014, that's exactly what happened after it rained. It would just sheet flow right across that since it was immediately adjacent to the river. But with the settling over time, it traps that water and doesn't allow it to be released.
So this section of the Riverwalk, the one behind the federal courthouse and the one where the Coast Guard had their dock, are the only ones where we have the concrete piles backfilled with dead men where you tie into it. Is that it?
That's right.
And those are the ones we've had the most significant problems with, is those particular areas there?
We did, yeah. I mean, the one at the Coast Guard, obviously, that's, 40 or 50 years old, so not surprising. This one's, as Charlie alluded to, a little more frustrating. But, Councilman Rivenbark, I apologize.
Well, going back, just looking at this, would you have designed it differently, knowing what we know here, or could you have even designed it differently based on the buildings that were there?
I mean, looking back, we could have put it on piles. You don't want to pound it now with all the bulkhead and the infrastructure in place, but that was a possibility. I guess, thinking back, lessons learned. It is a little more challenging when you have that much infrastructure out here. A lot of the other pile-supported riverwalks you see are kind of separated from the buildings. They're out over the river, where this was a little unique, where out of the river is where the marina is. So that makes, with the way that this kind of routes behind the marina makes it a little more challenging.
I tell you, it's a beautiful asset for the community and for the region, and I know a lot of people use it, and it's great. The issue that, going back to Charlie's point, is that when we're having to make these repairs, it's $3, $4, $5, $6 million, and it's not cheap repairs, but they have to be done. I know that you folks are putting your minds around it, your engineering group, as to how to better maintain this and get it to a point where councils don't have to wrestle with $4, $5, $6, $10 million repair job. We've had the same thing behind the Brooks building. I mean, it's pretty significant. I mean, it was a significant investment. The citizens wanted it. It's in place. It's one of the top river walks in the country, but it comes with a pretty significant expense just to maintain it over time. So, okay, thank you. Mr. Reinbach?
I just have one more observation. In this picture that we're looking at, this one, the water on the right side of the rail is the same level as the water on the left side of the walkway. Is that correct?
No.
And see, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's no way for that water on the left side of the walkway to get to the marina level other than sheeting over the deck?
The way it was designed initially, yes.
Settled that much.
Well, you guys know so much more about this than I do, but I'm going to say it anyway. Why would we not have some channels built under that to where the water could flow that way instead of relying on it sheeting over the deck?
That's what we're gonna include that as part of the review, potentially adding some drainage behind it, or, before where the front wall is, the way that bulkhead is constructed, there is a lot of washed stone and fabric right on the back side of that wall, which does allow for the river to drain and move and flow, but you're correct, this is where it's getting trapped.
And when the apartments or whatever construction is done up on that vacant lot, will they, I don't know that much, but will that be piles being driven into the ground for a foundation?
I would assume so. Most of the buildings down this way, because of the composition of the soil at depth, need that,
Okay.
but we will be in touch with
So
them.
we're worried about us doing something that would upset that, but they're going to come along and do that, which, I mean, I've watched enough construction to know that's a whole lot of trauma, if you will, to the surrounding infrastructure. And I would think that would certainly have some impact on what we're proposing to do here.
That's right, and we'd be glad to, after we coordinate with them and speak with them, if we feel like we have to hold off on some of this, we could definitely come back to you. One of the points you made last time was some of the Kettler development. I know that's finally up and coming out of the ground, so we feel like we're in the clear with that, but we will be discussing this with the Pier 33 developers.
Thank you.
Sir, Ms. Anderson.
Dylan, could you go to, I think it's the first or second, it's the second slide with photos, that one. While we're just talking about cost of this and whether we, all the maintenance and all the issues, look at the one on the right. Think of what this Riverwalk has done. And that park. There's nothing there, guys. If we superimposed it's amazing. I mean, I can't even name all the buildings. What are there, like, you got a marina, you got 2 restaurants, well, one doesn't get used much, but you got Pier 33, you got Kettler, you got a park. I mean, I don't know when that was taken in 2014. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
if this Riverwalk instigated that, the property value going in there and the property taxes we're getting from that, guys, that's a pretty that's a good investment. I mean, not saying that we ought to get it right, shouldn't get it right the first time. I'm not, but that's just that's amazing photo. When I looked at it, I was like, that was 2014. You walk down there now, it looks like there's a whole nother city there. It's amazing. So
I'd like to think that this spurred a lot of that development.
I'm confident it did.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you,
Yeah.
Mike.
So you're all comfortable with us moving forward?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Caudle?
Mr. Mayor, going back to Mr. Rivenbark's question regarding the state highway speed limits, Dennis Vilkenowitz has come in since then. I asked him, it would be 35 miles per hour on state-maintained roads like this one.
Are we done? I had, sometime back, I had asked, there was a presentation, I think Mr. Mays made it regarding electric vehicles. We were discussing it back and forth, and I asked at that time, several months ago, if we could, if I could have some kind of an update. You're nodding your head. I'll
It's
shut
coming,
up.
it's coming up, I believe, at the next agenda briefing or the following one.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, with that, we stand adjourned.